Welcome to Barebones Camera, where we share the ins and outs of cinematography, breaking down real setups, and taking you behind the scenes on professional film shoots. Today's show is sponsored by Kinefinity. Hey everyone, my name is Leigh Lisbão Underwood, and today I'll be chatting about test footage I shot on the MAVO LF with some great, affordable, classic full-frame lenses, the Canon FD S.S.Cs. These are photography lenses made in the 1970s, which have a nice vintage look while still achieving good sharpness and image quality. They are also very affordable, come in many different focal lengths, and are easy to find in good condition. I took a nice set of cine-modded FDs out in Vienna, Austria around Christmas time, and put them through the paces in a few tests, as well as a mix of documentary footage. In this and the next video, we'll have a look at usability, field of view and sharpness, low light and bokeh, and day exterior and lens flares. This video is less of a lens review and more of a practical tool for other cinematographers to get an impression of these lenses and compare them with other options that are out there. First, let's talk about some general impressions. I love these lenses for a number of reasons. First and foremost is their image character, which is anything but boring and to me very beautiful. They were produced at the same time as Canon's legendary cinema lenses, the K35s, and share a lot of the same image qualities. Soft contrast, great sharpness at the center and stop down, a vintage image rendering, and beautiful lens flares. This series of SSC lenses came in a huge number of lens lengths, from 14mm all the way up to 300mm and beyond. They all cover full-frame sensors like the MAVO LF, and most lenses can be found for 100 to 200 euros. The Canon FD mount on these lenses, also called a breech mount, is actually great for filmmaking because it doesn't rotate the lens and tightens to the camera body firmly, sort of like a PL mount but on the lens itself. On the MAVO LF, all you need is the E-mount adapter and an E-mount to FD mount adapter. There are also some third-party Kinemount to FD adapters out there. The only downside of the FD mount is that it's a little bit fiddly to mount the lens on the camera, because it needs to engage at just the right angle to allow the aperture to close. Some mounts have an extra ring to rotate to make this process easier. One thing that's essential for these lenses is a CLA service, and ideally a cine-mod, before using them for video. In lenses this old, the internal lubrication and adjustment can wear out, which results in problems like uneven rotation and image shifting when you pull focus. Even copies that have been perfectly preserved will still benefit from the service. This set received a fantastic CLA service and cine-mod, which adjusted the mechanics to be as good as new, declicked the aperture, and added high-quality focus gears. Let's take a look at the field of view range, together with lens sharpness. The lens set I tested started from 20mm, which is incredibly wide for full frame, up to 200mm, although the 135 and 200 weren't available during this particular test. All the lenses are f2.8 or faster. To create the equivalent frame width and shallow depth of field on a Super 35 sensor, you'd need a lens range from 14mm all the way to 140mm, with a minimum f-stop of 2.0 or lower. Most cine lens sets cover only 18 to 85mm in Super 35, or 24 to 100 in full frame, so the options with this set are much bigger. You can see that the lenses are a bit soft wide open, with some fringe artifacts and vignetting, which is to be expected. The fringing is of course noticeable here because of the architecture of the Schönbrunn Palace, but less noticeable in other shooting situations, such as with people and in nature. And in my opinion, they look very nice wide open in most cases. As you can see, the artifacts clean up nicely after closing down a stop. I also tend to favor vignetting, and it's usually only noticeable with a direct comparison between stops anyway. Here you can also see what these lenses would look like on a Super 35 sensor in the MAVO LF's 4K mode. For this test, I was unfortunately not able to do an effective focus pull to test focus breathing because my travel tripod was not stable enough for the camera. From experience, I can tell you that these lenses certainly have more focus breathing than modern cinema lenses. That usually doesn't bother me, and the focus gradation is very smooth and gentle. You might notice that there are some slight color shifts on this footage, which has a standard neutral LUT applied. This is mostly because the light color was changing at the end of the day. In order to compensate my exposures, I was also using a variable ND filter, which might have had a small effect as well. In my experience, the lenses are actually perfectly color matched, which is thanks to the SSC coating they're named for. One thing to look out for specifically on the 20mm and wider lenses, and also the zoom lens we'll look at later, is that the front of the lens rotates with focus pulls. This is a problem with variable NDs because they often create patterns on the image that become visible when they're rotated. In the next video, we'll have a look at how these lenses perform in low light and the style of their bokeh. We'll also take a look at lens flares and shooting in a day exterior natural setting, which is one of the places where the Canon FD S.S.Cs really shine. We'll even check out the Canon FD 35-105 zoom, which is a great complement to the SSC lens set. Stay tuned for that and many more behind the scenes insights on filmmaking by subscribing to our channel. For now, this is Barebones Camera signing off.